Is there a way for you to actually show me in the application what we're doing with Figma integration right now? Because I think that's a big topic that people care about. Can we deliver on the promise of making a thing and seeing it in that centralized source of truth manner that you just described for most of our Figma users who are probably wondering whether they're going to always be living in that silo of Figma, or whether there is the opportunity to work across the different, what do we call them, workflows, to see and visualize what it is that's happening in React and in the design system itself.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So what we have done recently is, starting to work with the data coming out of Figma in much the same way that we do with code. The coded template world, React, Angular, web components, all these, they're all based on really well-structured data and code, right? And that allows us historically to do all kinds of fun things. Here, let me open up my my screen share here. So when I look at something in Knapsack like documentation for a good old button here, I have all these cool tools where I can like loop over, different props, different ways the button looks. This is based on a React component, and automatically show me all the ways it could look, right? You update your React button, engineer does, to have an extra large variant, and this block's going to update as well, right? So lots of great superpowers. This is also what powers our code playgrounds, where we can get in and, sort of configure all these different, elements or properties. And so again, in this world, we pull this in from code, and design has historically not been as sort of sophisticated or rigorous, right, in coming out of design tools. Now we do have that capability. So if I go and look at, here, what I have is we have connected a Figma component. We've done this based on, we actually have a UI for, browsing a Figma file that you've connected at your kind of workspace level, going in and seeing what components. This is actually a sample file with 2 components. And immediately I've pulled in all the variations of the button based on how the properties have been configured this time in Figma, right? There's a property for the roundedness, whether it's a rounded button or a square button, the color and the size. And that we also actually have those properties defined as code that we've pulled out of your Figma file. We also have some usage data, which we think is pretty cool and unique, where we can actually see, hey, this button was used in variations of the card. I can actually link over to my card component in Knapsack and see those card variants here. It's the same kind of idea. And then we can also start to, create these dynamic comparisons. And we're working on some really cool stuff that isn't just ready for show yet, but this is a similar idea, which is I have taken here a design source file, and line it right up. And so I said, give me a bunch of more granular exports here. You see, I get visuals where I can go through all the different exports of this button. And I grab these 3 too from the Figma file. And I can go through all my different components, the different frames. You can get really granular navigating that file you've connected. And here, what I've done is I've essentially brought in all of those variations directly under the code variation, right? And I can do these side by side if I want, right? So I'm starting to create, to the point earlier, hey, right now, whether it's because it's our demo files or whatnot, the thing in code doesn't really look directly like either of these, sort of variations of rounded or not. And so I can, put some statuses around this stuff, start to bubble up to, again, a clear central view of all those different sources of truth and coordinate the activity, right? Something like Jira combined with a link to your Knapsack workspace or different pages or branches is a really, really common way to keep teams organized. There's no longer 8 things to jump through. It's see how it looked in design, how it is in code, where we need to do our work. Let's get after it.
So a designer using Figma can immediately see how their design in Figma looks against what the design system is suggesting it should look like against what the React code is doing.
Exactly, right. So let's, a designer can come in here and we've got a lot of content, right? You could add a new page when you say you just designed the component for the button, and you go through that workflow I described of using our navigator, grabbing the button, and it creates this page for you. And so here's basically the spec for your engineering team. Here are all the different properties, the different options within the properties, right? This is taking work you did in the design language in Figma and converting it into something very, very usable and familiar to engineers, right? And then some contextual info as well. And then you could just like that, you could send it off to the engineering team. And when they would go through and connect the coded component, you'd see something like this as a playground, right? And you could come in here and This would allow you to just, experiment very quickly and see all the different variations and modes and see if they implemented it well. You'd probably say, dude, the border radius is way off. You could also go and, add some of these. Let's just, if I want to go in and add a page and just do some documentation, like I was showing earlier, we can say, hey, give me the, that component. I want to do a demo of the button. We're working in here, we're in React, and I want to just loop this, loop over this really quickly again and show, we'll show size again. And then I could, start to compare this directly next. So I'm starting to kind of give myself a quick readout. In reality, a lot of times this is already set up and you're just looking at kind of the update of all of the ways this thing rendered. Again, I showed earlier, you can put your design rendering right next to that. And so again, there's still probably a disconnect, but you're not realizing it once you've all sunk a ton of time and effort into it. You're realizing it, at a very early level and then being able to kind of move accordingly.
Brilliant.